Thank you for being here with us. I was just, we were just connecting before this call, and I was like, this is one of the first conversations that really feels like an interview. Like, I really feel like I'm like, the world needs Jessica. Here are the questions.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Jessica is a mindset coach and a self-mastery coach. She's also a yoga teacher. She's also just an incredible mother and woman and friend, and always invites me to love more. And I'm so excited to share her with you. Is there anything you want to add about what it is that you do, your particular magic?
Well, it's always evolving, the words. I've never really mastered my, as a mastery coach, I haven't mastered my elevator pitch yet because it's always changing. But that's the beauty of mastery, is you're always evolving because there's no end. There's no finish line. There's just always more. The infinite realm of possibilities just continues to grow. And as soon as you think you've arrived to one level, you're like reminded that there's so much more. And so for me, really what I hone in on is taking your power back from the unconscious and from the default mechanism that we operate by, that the ego created in order to feel safe, sane, and stable.
That sounds like a really juicy elevator pitch, I gotta say. Like, I think you're like really close to it. Listen back and then you'll be able to.
Yeah, I'm
It
so
sounds really
stoked it was
juicy.
recorded.
Yeah, thank God. Okay, so one of the coolest things that Jessica's ever introduced me to is something called core beliefs. And when she really started sharing like some of the research and how they're formed, it just started to like blow my mind. So that is like one of the main reasons, or at least the main topic of conversation today, is those like, what is a core belief?
So a core belief is the way that we perceive our environment. We have to adapt to that environment. So I like to tell this little story how like we're this beautiful soul who's made this sacred contract and just like is getting ready to go to Earth, right? And it's like the paradise planet, and they've made this contractual agreement to come in, and then they find themselves in the womb of their mother. And so every energetic experience they're having from that moment of arrival, they are reading energy and orienting themselves. So like for me, I recently realized that some of my core beliefs started in the womb because of the dynamic that my mother and father had when I was when I was being carried in the womb. And the core beliefs, so the soul comes into this instrument, which is the egoic. The ego is part of this instrument. It's a very vital part of this instrument. And the ego needs to, its main job is to keep you alive, is to keep you safe. And so it creates an orientation in order for you to know what your boundaries are, basically. What, we have to have an orientation. So like sailors before the time of GPS would orient themselves based on the stars, and they're fixed, right? They're fixed, they're moving, but they're fixed together. They're always in the same orientation. So we know where to go. And so with the ego, we need to know how to survive, how to stay sane, how to stay stable. And in order to do that, we have to know how to get our needs met. And the way that we get our needs met is by knowing what I need to do to get what I want. So what do I need to do to get what I want? And certain energetic, whether it's an energetic message, a physical message, a vocal message that we receive from the masculine and feminine between the moment we're in the womb until between 5 and 7-ish is when these become set in stone and are fixed. And then they really determine how we think, how we perceive the world, how we perceive ourselves, and how we get what we want. The operating structure that we have that gets us what we want. So
Yeah.
that's what a core belief. And then there's 12 of them. Does that all make sense?
Well, yes. But like, I'm like learning even more in this moment. So like, I have more questions. I'm like, so what I hear, because, you know, one of the main things I teach a lot about is like the masculine and feminine. So the masculine, I just like mumbled those words. The masculine is the mind. The feminine is the body, because the body is always changing and the mind has this element of being fixed. So the masculine is like the unchanging reality. The feminine is the changing reality. So it's like, what I hear is that we're developing a strategy in our own mind to create certainty so that we can experience that unchanging reality. And everything that butts up against that is like, I mean, kind of in trouble.
Kind of scary, paralyzing, whatever, you know, it can be any number of things. It's a way that we respond to our environment when change is imminent.
But the masculine's so important. Like, we need that structure. We need that unchanging. We need a certain element of certainty, or like something to rely on, that like unchanging reality. But at the same time, what is fixed is not always functional. True. Or healthy. Yeah, so that's where you come in.
Yeah, so that's the orientation that the ego constructs for us to know, you know, how to live, how to maintain a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, this is the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love everything you just shared.
I mean, my mind's kind of being blown a little bit, just because I'm in my own exploration, and I'm just so happy we're having this conversation. So, how do we identify what our core beliefs are? Like, how do we know kind of what is in that fixed state, so that we can kind of look and see, like, okay, what's function? That's really functional. Thank you for being there. And like, that's really not functional. Ooh, I think we need to work with that, or, you know, navigate that, change that storyline, or kind of flip the script.
Yeah, flip the script. So, you know, that's a great question, because the first thing to do is to become aware of what they are. And once, you know, even hearing them, you start to think, oh, I identify with that. But then once you hear what the compensating strategies are, that's when you can say, oh, I do that. Oh, I do that. Oh, I've always done that. Oh, that's familiar. That rings true. And so once you have that awareness, you immediately shift the power, because now you're on to yourself. And if you're willing to be hyper aware, which as a creator, which is what we all are, it's part of our job to be aware, so that we have an eye on what the current reality is, and knowing where we're going, knowing what we want to create. And so being aware of your surroundings, aware of your behaviors, aware of your thoughts, your feelings, and your visions, and, you know, what you love. It's very important. And so these core beliefs help to bring more awareness, because if we're not aware of them, then they are running the show in a very dysfunctional way. Beneath our awareness, it's our default programming, it's our conditioning. And so the awareness is the key. And once you are aware of what your compensating strategies are, you'll be aware of what your predominant limiting beliefs are, core beliefs are, foundational beliefs, whatever you want to call them, that have had the power. Because it's the underlying assumption that we are powerless. And then when we act in a way that reinforces that powerless, we continue to program ourselves. We continue to condition ourselves. And then we set out to prove that we're powerful. But even in proving that we're powerful, we're reinforcing the belief that we're powerless. Because powerful people don't stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm powerful, I'm powerful, I'm powerful. Like, those affirmations reinforce the belief that we're powerless, because the body knows the truth.
Mm, mm. So are core beliefs always considered to be kind of like the shadow side or the negative side of like, are they always considered to be limiting, or is it just the compensating strategy that can be limiting?
It's the core belief, and it's the compensating strategy is the way that we go about our lives because of the belief that we aren't this, or that we, that we aren't able to, for example, I'm not allowed to be capable.
Which is the core belief.
Yes, it's one of the core beliefs. So if I believe that I'm not allowed to be capable, I am unconsciously creating proof that I'm not allowed to be capable.
Mm.
So for example, in my world, that belief shows up for me when I do everything that I think is right to set myself up for success, and inevitably some outside thing will come in, and immediately my belief will say, I'm not allowed to be capable. Look, I did everything right. I set it all up and still I failed, or what have you. So then if my focus is on my core belief that I'm not allowed to be capable, and I'm doing everything to avoid something going wrong, then I'm tuned into the underlying assumption. My focus is on the underlying assumption that I'm not allowed to be capable. Therefore, I'll create proof. I will not only create proof, I will look for proof all the time. It's just my orientation. So I have awareness of it, and there's different ways that I can, be in the world so that I'm not constantly avoiding situations that happen.
Right. Wow. So when you spoke about like an affirmation, like when you're speaking about like powerlessness versus powerful, like you wouldn't speak an affirmation. Like where do affirmations, I guess here's the question, where do the affirmations come into play in like trying to, I guess, flip the script on that core belief, because like affirmations are widely used in order to raise your vibration or create new neural pathways. So is that a strategy, or do you kind of see that as like,
No, I don't agree with affirmations. I think affirmations,
yes. Awesome.
I don't.
Tell me
I think
why.
that affirmations relieve our tension in the moment. It can be like a bandage, but it's not going to fix the problem. And it's not even really a problem. It's just a way of life. It's an orientation. And so in order to take the power out, because they're always going to be there, it's our orientation. It's our blueprint, if you will, when we come into the human existence before we were in the spiritual realm. So my blueprint as a human being in the structure that I was born into, well, we can get there later, but I chose it in order to fulfill my destiny, to fulfill my mission, to fulfill my purpose. So the way that we, instead of an affirmation, it's in the behavior. So an affirmation doesn't work, behavior works. So when we can be on to ourselves, like, what am I thinking? And knowing that my thoughts are producing feelings, and my feelings are generating behavior, and my behavior is generating an outcome. So that awareness is being aware of what my thoughts are, being aware of what my feelings are, seeing that when I feel mad, there's a behavior that accompanies that feeling. And then when I'm on to myself, when I'm aware that when I'm mad, this is usually what I do. I either withhold love, I shut down, I react, I punish, and there's a number of things that we do. I typically shut down. That's my thing. If I'm really angry and unconscious of that anger, I'm gonna shut down and withhold my love from you and punish you. Okay. So when I start to see that, and instead of resisting that, like, that's shadow. That's what I do when I'm in my victim mentality. And I believe we're either in our victim or we're in our creator. And that we can slide back and forth between the two energies. One is a limiting energy. The other is an all expansive growing energy. So the core belief feeds the thoughts. everything is perceived through the core belief, right?
Mm.
If I'm going to start a new job or a new business or something and I have a powerless belief, then I'm going to try to manipulate, seduce, or distract someone to hire me because I don't believe I have the power. And when I don't believe the power, I'm going to use a compensating strategy to get them to believe in me because I don't believe in myself. So I need them to do it. So I'm going to use all my tactics, right? And I'm going to and then this is reinforcing that I'm powerless because my subconscious mind gets the message that the power is outside of me. And I need to get the man with the power, the woman with the power to believe in me. Then I can get the job rather than owning that I'm the creator and that the power rests in me when I'm not affected by these core beliefs. And the only way I cannot be affected is just to simply be aware each time I see it rearing its head and not push it away, say, that's just my powerless belief. Like, I know that the power is in me. That's the truth. But if I jump up and down in front of the mirror and say, I'm powerful, I'm just checking myself out. And again, my body isn't buying it. My body's saying, that girl, what is she trying to prove? See, we're proving when we're not believing in ourselves. We're proving to others what we don't believe to be true in ourselves. When we're in our power, we're truly being of service. And that is where the evidence of a powerful person can be seen, is when they're truly of service. There's no agenda, there's no manipulation, there's no seduction, there's no selling, proving. It's just a generous offering from a place of power, wanting to support, lift, and raise others up.
Wow.
When you're in your power, there's no competition. When you're in your victim, everything is competition.
Yes. I mean, there's so much around proving. There's so much. And I feel like the need to prove yourself or the need to seek from the outside is such a strong, ingrained program in all of us. Like, it's how advertisers advertise. It's deep-seated in some religious structures. It's like, it's really sad. Like, it actually makes me feel sad. And there was a time recently I participated in a grief ceremony and I had this beautiful release, and for probably the rest of the day, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. And I had so much peace inside my body, mind, heart. Like, I was like, how can I live like this all the time?
Yeah. You create it. And you created that experience. So you have the cellular memory and you can create it again and again and again. And you are fortunate to have had that experience because many people are still striving to even get a taste of it.
Well, I feel fortunate. Wow. So creating an experience, I love this idea of like victim versus creator. Like, that really puts things in perspective. You are either like powerless or powerful. It's like you're sucking energy and you feel tired all the time, or you're creating energy and you feel like this all the time. Like, and there's so much when we drop into energy and power, there's so much. There's so many intricacies and subtleties. But how do you actively create your experience? Like, is it something you do first thing in the morning? Is it something you do throughout the day? Like, what do what if you're like in a really big thought spiral and nothing is working? What are your strategies for creating an experience?
Yes, all of the above, right?
I love you so much, by the way.
I love you too. I'm so happy to be doing this. This is like this is me feeling that amplification because this is my favorite thing to talk about.
Yes.
I can do this for 24/7 and probably go without sleep and food for a while. So first of all, let's first address, when you're in the thought spiral. So
right.
In the world that I choose to live in, thoughts and feelings are not real. And that's a really difficult concept to buy into. I resisted it for a long time because when we're having a thought, it seems very real. And when we're having a feeling, it super seems real. So how's that even possible that they're not real? Well, it's because we're only interpreting what we're seeing through the lens of our own perception based on our own history and experience, as well as the way that we're defining things. So, but we all, no matter how, I mean, I've been doing this work for a long time and I still get caught up in thoughts and feelings because once my emotions are triggered, I'm blind to reality. Once I'm in a deep emotion, like the anger, for example, if I'm angry, I'm going to have a default mechanism, a default behavior that happens, to support that anger. It's like the dominoes just start falling and, they know their job when the next one hit, what to do. So when I'm in that space, and I'm aware, the first thing that I do is just accept what is. Okay? As soon as I accept it, it loses power. If I resist it, it ramps up the power. So
yeah, that makes total sense.
Accepting that this is just what it is. Not that I'm like, okay, I'm resigning to this way of being for the rest of my life. That's very different from accepting. It's just accepting what is reality. If it's raining and I'm upset that it's raining and I'm resisting the rain is not going to stop. And I'm basically going to be upset until it does. Okay. So I just take a pause. And when I do that, as soon as I accept it, there's a moment where I can kind of pull back from it and begin to observe it from more of a place of neutrality. And I have a process that I take myself through, like, okay, what's the situation that's got me so upset right now and agitated? And then I name it, I list it out like a scientist would do. The flower has blue petals. There's no emotion in that. It's just science. It's just, this is what I see. Okay, so I write that down and then I'm like, okay, what are the thoughts that I'm having? Ooh, yeah, this is the thoughts. And then what are the feelings that I'm having? And I always work with the 4 feelings, scared, angry, sad, happy. All the other thoughts in the world can all be filtered through those 4 thoughts, the 4 core. And then I'm like, well, what am I making it mean about me? Am I taking it personally? What am I making it mean about me? How am I defining myself now that I'm having this experience and then how am I defining that other person? What am I making it mean about them? All this is wisdom, and it's extremely powerful. And I just heard this quote, which I'll share with you. The Sufis had a saying that was, dysfunctional behavior is the gateway to heaven. And what I'm talking to you about right now is dysfunctional behavior. It's the way that we react to situations based on our history and definitions and our identity. So once I've got through those questions, then I'm like, okay, that's all happening. I'm getting some awarenesses. Pieces are landing with me. I'm like a little bit more smarter than I was before it happened. And then I go to what would I love? And that takes me completely out of ego, if I was still in it at all. And then it puts me right into my imagination. And that's where I create my experience I want to be having. What would I love? I would love this. What's that going to require of me? What's the obvious action that I can take? And sometimes it's an inaction to not do something that I normally would do. And then from there, you're in the creative orientation. You're out of the egoic orientation, the dysfunctional formation, and you're in your creative orientation. And then you just get clear. What would I love? And you're smart enough, because science says that we're able to take in 400 billion bits of information when we're in the unknown, when we're not trying to make everything make sense. When we're trying to make everything make sense and we need to know and we need to get it right, and we're basing everything on what we know to be true conventional wisdom, history again, we are closing ourselves off to 380 billion bits of that 400 billion bits that are available to us. We're accessing 2,000 or maybe 20,000, 2,000. So it's my numbers are off. 388 billion, 100
We're
billion,
not here for math.
388 billion. I know. Thank you. That's not my
We're
game.
not here for math.
However, basically the gist of it is you've got 2,000 bits you're working with when you're in your ego, when you're in the limited human experience, but we have access to everything because we're connected to all things through all space and time when we're in the unknown, when we're not trying to make it all make sense.
Wow.
And that's how powerful we are.
Yeah. You know, one of the most powerful things that you said was just the acceptance. You know, that's something I resonate with so strongly because so many times I have caught myself in that like mental war. There have been moments where I'll just stop fighting. Like I'll just say like, okay, like, okay, I feel bad. Okay, I feel bad. And then all of a sudden I feel so much better because I'm not fighting the fact that I don't feel good or fighting the fact that I don't want to do blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like all this mental war about like, no, but you should, and you why aren't you feeling better yet? And why aren't you doing this yet? And why, you know, it's like that mental,
you know better.
yeah, that mental war. It's like just like one of the most powerful things is that acceptance because you stop the war. It's like, okay, I surrender.
Yes.
No more war, please.
Yeah. And I mean, we want all those wars out there to stop, but we're not willing to stop the war that we're creating. Right. And if we each did that, imagine what the world would look like then.
Absolutely. You know, one of my wars that's happening within me today is like, I'm looking for where something is wrong. I'm like, where is it wrong? Because then there's something to fix and I get to be right about it.
Oh, the ego loves to fix.
Like it is like poison in my mind and in my body. So yeah, that's actually my next question is like, where do you experience your beliefs showing up in your body? Like when you catch yourself, is it a feeling that you're catching yourself in, a feeling in your body, or is it an emotion, or is it like just a thought? You know, maybe what you did a couple of years ago before you were as like Jedi mastery as you are now.
Oh, girl, I still get triggered. So, you know, there's different stages. So, you know, if you're all tuned in and dialed in and onto yourself, you get it at the thought. You know, it's like, oh, I'll give you a good example. Here's a story. So my husband and I are having like the most amazing relationship of our lives right now. And we're coming together in such a beautiful way. And there's still this history that I'm really working on. You know, instead of divorcing him, I decided, why don't I just divorce my history of all the crap that I, you know, made up in all the ways that I defined him. And so yesterday, 2 surfboards were delivered. And in the past, I would always trigger when he would get a surfboard because the story I would get from his is that, you know, there's no money, we can't do this, we can't keep the air conditioning at this, you know, all these ways. And then a surfboard would be arriving, and then he'd have this story and justify that he you know, he turned one in, and we'd have this laughing joke about how surfboards are, you know, according to him, surfboards don't cost much money, but he always seems to make a lot when he sells them. Kind of, you know, just really inaccurate information because there was an insecurity about buying it, and I would pick up on it. So yesterday, these 2 surfboards came, and, you know, immediately I was like, oh, he didn't tell me he was getting 2 surfboards. And so that was the thought. And then the next thought was, thinking, how much were they? Why didn't he tell me he was getting them? Right. So here comes 3 more thoughts, and then stories start forming, right? Like the story. And then all of a sudden I got it. I was like, look at him. He's so happy. And clearly him buying 2 surfboards is a sign of him and his abundance. I was interpreting it so differently before. And I got to see it more accurately this time. And I was like, seeing how in the past I was denying myself the connection with him in that. I mean, besides shoes, buying surfboards is his favorite thing to do. Like, it's just surfing is his life. It's his passion. And I was missing out on that because I was running the story and wanting to make him wrong and defining him as irresponsible or making a poor decision, or when all the while, you know, I was missing out on this opportunity to connect with him in his ultimate joyful state, where he's excited to have these new surfboards and he's taking us all to Costa Rica, and you know, when the borders open back up. And so I was like, wow, I want connection more than anything. I want love and connection. And so much of what I was doing from my thoughts and feelings, right, were keeping me in separation, because I was writing stories that were keeping me separate from him. So in this case, I was able to catch it at the thought. Sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes I've already shut down and then I'm in my room sulking. And then I'm like, why am I doing this? This isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I want. And then I'm like, what would I love? And it's what we love. We have to eat a little humble pie sometimes and realize that, hey, my ego was running the show. And that wasn't cool the way I spoke to you. And, or this isn't what I want. I saw that I was acting like a kid. I saw that I needed to be right. I saw that, you know, things that I'm letting myself get upset. Like, that's on me, because I'm responsible for the experience I want to be having. Nobody else is responsible for my experience but me. And I'm creating all of this with thoughts and feelings to stay separate from the people I absolutely want to stay connected to. Does that answer your question?
Yes. You know, I also hear like he was taking care of himself.
Yes, in a beautiful way. He was treating himself to two new, like, these really nice surfboards, Channel something. If any surfers out there, you know what I'm talking about. And Channel Island. And he was so excited, and his brother's visiting us. So it was like to be able to have that experience with everyone. But I saw myself going down this old road, you know, sliding along this slippery slope where I could have created a lot of stories, and I could have, you know, and the other days I would have just been like cold with him. Ridiculous. But
and created the separation that wasn't actually there.
Exactly.
It was being created. Yeah, I too resonate with what I desire to feel most is connection. And often what I experience myself doing the most of, or like what is in direct conflict with that, is often what I do the most of. You know, because it's, you know, well, I guess I'm asking you, like, is that a core belief, like trying to keep me from my power, or trying to keep me from experiencing, you know, like, would that be?
Yeah, there's, you know, of the 12, there's usually 3 to 5 that are predominant. And once you're really aware of what they are, you're running it through like, I'm not worthy, right? Or I'm not lovable. Those are the same. I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy. And so that's the most prevalent one of all. And if you don't think you're worthy of connection, or you don't think you're worthy of love, and what you really, really do want is love. But there's also another element in here that's important to note, is that when we're not creating, we're usually avoiding something. And wherever our focus is, that's what we're going to be creating. So if I'm focused on what I want, then I'm in the creative orientation and I'm going for what I want. If I'm focused on what I don't want, or looking for it, as you mentioned earlier, that's where your focus is. So your reality becomes that which you're avoiding, or that which you don't want. And in that moment, okay, it's a moment, but that moment connects to the next moment, which connects to the next moment. And the only moment we truly have is this moment. So this moment is the time to do the work. This moment is the time to get clear on what you want. This moment is the time to act in favor of that. Because the mind, like you said, fixing, solving problems, that's what the ego wants to do. and we'll solve a problem and feel like we've conquered the world. It feels so good. It's so satisfying to the insatiable appetite of the ego. So satisfying. So I used to put it on my resume. I joke about it. I'm like, that was like one of my greatest skills. I can solve problems like nobody's business. Give me a problem, I will get busy figuring out the how. But again, that's confining me to just 2,000 bits of information. And for every problem I solve, there's usually 2 more behind it. I mean, look at the world, the climate that we're in right now. We've been trying to solve racial problems. We're trying to solve the COVID problem. But how many people are out there creating a new way? Who's really clear on what the end result is? You know, we want unity consciousness as an end result, but are we really tuning into what the next step is to get that? Or are we too busy performing for everybody to see that we're all busy fixing the problem, doing our best to show up, which is great, but it's not getting us to our desired outcome. And our desired outcome is where, you know, when we are really clear on that vision of what we truly want, then we can open up to the infinite possibility and take action in favor of that, rather than trying to solve problems to, you know, eliminate whatever tension is rising within us. We want to fix it. See, the tension is the thing here. Tension seeks resolution. Okay. So when we're here, we know where we are, our current reality, and where we want to go, our desired outcome. There's this much tension between the two. If I had a rubber band, it'd be really obvious. And if I let go of that rubber band, the tension seeks resolution, so it takes the path of least resistance. Okay. If we don't act in favor of resolving that creative tension, it starts to create psychological tension. And that's when we start wanting to solve problems and fix things. Does that make sense? To relieve the tension, because we're so uncomfortable with tension. I mean, even in yoga, they're like, relieve the tension in your body, right? Well, that's physical tension, but there is creative tension. And that tension is the fuel to get you from where you are to your desired outcome.
Well, yeah, I think let me ask you a question to make sure that I'm grasping the point. So I'm remembering a conversation that I had recently, and by recently, it's like post-COVID, sometime in the window of time of COVID, where I was speaking to a friend about conflict resolution and how I was considering myself to be a peacemaker because I was basically swallowing the conflict on both sides and just taking it. So it's like, look,
that for you
it's peaceful. But like my friend called me out and she was like, first of all, you're not creating peace. You're creating more conflict within yourself. So
she's smart.
You need to stop calling yourself a peacemaker. But is that basically what you're saying? It's like that false, like I was trying to alleviate the tension. And so I just took it away. I took it on because I know my capacity. I can hold on to a lot of heavy shit and still move, you know? So I'm like, I'll take that on. And then a few hours later or days later or months later, I'm going to feel so resentful. I might actually want to be violent.
Yes.
And then I'm going to blame it on you.
Absolutely.
Which is not healthy.
Yeah, it's creating the illusion of peace, right? That creates the illusion of peace, but it's not a match for your energy. And that's truth. So in creating what we want, we must commit to living in truth, because truth is what we work with in creation. It has to be based on reality, not illusion. So it's reality and vision. Vision is our desire, what we really want. And so next time you find yourself in conflict, ask yourself, what would I love? And the information, the higher intelligence, the higher perspective will become available to you when you open up to receive it. Instead of opening up to receive the conflict, be open to receiving the intelligence, the higher intelligence, and then act in favor of what you get.
Yes.
Because what
Instead
I
of
would say you were
opening
doing
up.
to swallowing the conflict, because what I would suggest to you is that you were actually thinking that peacemaking is avoiding conflict, that by avoiding conflict, you will create peace. And the opposite is true.
Right.
Whatever we avoid, we will create. Whatever we're seeking to avoid, we create. That's why we lie to people, because we're afraid of their reaction if we tell them the truth. And then
Yes.
we're afraid we're not going
You
to
know,
know
I
who to
once I
be in
once
that.
heard this described as like always being in either, you like my prop?
Say it again.
And always being either in resistance
Mm-hmm.
or what was the other? Resistance or sabotage.
Oh.
It's like we're either in resistance, which resistance is creating the fear in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
or we're in sabotage, which means we already have what we want and somewhere in us doesn't believe that it's there or that we're worthy of it. So we destroy it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, to be fair, it's our orientation. And so it feels
Right.
familiar. You know,
Right.
we know how to survive. And some of us have taken a lot of pride in our survival techniques. You know, that used to be I took a lot of pride in what I could survive in. You know, single mom, wear it like a crown. You know, I could do hard things. You know, I was doing hard things, and I was really proud of my ability to survive things. And I
Mm-hmm.
never believed that I could thrive. But I was so comfortable in the survival because I knew how to do that. I knew how to scrounge together a meal from the cabinet when there was nothing to eat. And then I would make that meal and I'd be like, oh, like I just built a fire or something. You know, it's a very low survival.
Mm-hmm.
That was my, you know, I prided myself in that. And so I was very comfortable there. And so, yes, I would do the same thing, just sabotage myself. You know, let me find something wrong, because this unknowing how to be in this thriving experience is uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar.
Yeah, even feeling really good can be really uncomfortable. It's like, I don't know how to have this much energy or feel this good. So like, let me
Yeah.
blow it up.
Yeah.
So then I can be comfortable again.
And what was familiar?
Mm-hmm.
And what was familiar? It's powerful. So you have a choice to decide, you know, and which orientation do you really want to live in, and what are you willing to do to maintain that orientation? So you had some other questions tied to that other one. So I'd want to tell you that two of the things that I do to keep in the vibration that I want to be in, to take responsibility for myself, for the experience I want to be having, is I do connect as soon as I wake up. And
Yeah.
I am aware of myself first. You know, my brother-in-law's in town and he works for a giant software corporation, and he was telling me one of his biggest takeaways from being sheltered and not going out is that he doesn't have to wake up to an alarm anymore. And I was like, oh gosh, I had that cellular memory of waking up to an alarm and how alarming it is. And that the first thing that I would do the moment I heard that alarm was go into dread. And what do I do? What am I doing today? What's on my, like, is today a work day? Oh, I got to be somewhere. I need to get up. I need to get going. No, there's no room for Jessica. This is just a robotic automatic response. Like I'm a
Yeah.
shell of a human being in that state. And so what I do now is I wake up and I really just touch my chest and I just wake up and I look around me. And you know, maybe some thoughts are coming, but I really take a moment to pay attention to myself and to what is in this moment. What am I waking up to? But I've defined the world very differently too, because the world used to be a hard place to live in, a place that I just really didn't understand how it worked. And I needed to figure out how it worked so I could get what I wanted. And now I'm like, the world is a paradise and I'm so grateful to be here. So I wake up in a different place because I'm defining what I'm waking up into very differently than I once had. I also run through what I'm choosing to create, because that immediately starts to lift my vibration. And I'm going into the vision of, oh, you know, one of my visions is, you know, with my husband, I choose the end result of having a fun, sexy, intimate relationship with my husband. And so I see us laughing and playing and also having deep conversations and not taking ourselves seriously and really connecting. And that puts me in a really great vibration. And then when I, look over at him in the morning, when I first see him, I see him with these eyes that are in that vibration, in that energy. So I usually am working with about 9 choices, and I go through 2 every morning when I wake up. And that is really elevating. And then during the day, if I find myself in a slope and I start to see, well, what am I thinking about? Where is that taking me? Is this what the experience I want to be having? If it's not, then I'm like, well, what would I love right now? Oh, I'd actually love to go outside, or but I honor what comes. I don't, that the other like kind of pitfall is, and I work with a lot of people that really struggle with this until they don't, is that they get the idea, they get the insight, the higher consciousness is speaking to them and putting it on their heart, what to do, what they would love. And they start thinking about it. Well, if I did that, then what am I going to do after that? And if I do that, I have to commit to all, and instead of thinking about it, just go do it.
Yeah. Or the brain comes in and says, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because you should do this.
You've got a list that you're supposed to be doing. And your job is to be a performer, a producer. So you start beating yourself with the stick to,
that looks like a whip, actually.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, don't let those thoughts that aren't real keep you from experiencing what you love. Because when you're doing what you love, your vibration is rising, you have more energy, you can take on more, you're more tuned into what's true. And you take it on, you only take on more because it's true to do it. If it's not true to do it, who are you doing it for? Who's watching? Nobody's watching.
The inner judge, as Don Miguel Ruiz would say, the judge with the book of law, and it's like, I'm watching you.
Yeah, and so we start walking around in life like we're performing, like there's some big prize. The prize is in tuning into what's true, because then you're going to create something that's truly a match for you. And it's not just going to be some symbol of power that doesn't have any meaning to you, but it looks good to people on Instagram or something.
I'm so happy you brought up truth, because first I want to say that when you put your hand on your heart and you spoke about waking up in the morning, I could feel your energy shift. Like there is such a love that you have for yourself. And so like inviting anyone into that frequency is just so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
The second thing is, you really helped me create a language around speaking my truth. And one of the ways that you helped me do that was that word, true for you. And so how do you share with your clients how to know what is true for them? Because that is something I use all the time now. It was like this hidden language that my body, mind, heart was so ready to start speaking, and then you give me the words. So how do you help your clients discover what is true for them?
I teach them ways to tune into themselves. So quieting the world and really
opening to the 4 million,
the 400 billion, 400 billion, right? So yeah, I teach them a way to access truth and to be in the unknown, to be in the not knowing, to be in the no need to know. And it's a space that can be very uncomfortable. So I really guide them into this place and take them up higher and higher and higher. It's like a guided visual meditation, and they get to kind of go back to innocence, right? Back to where there is no egoic judge. It's just like you're looking at everything in awe and wonder. And from here, we're not likely to limit ourselves or filter, because the ego, just as much as the ego will keep you from having anything you want, it will also keep you from owning what you really want is being okay. You know, because I had a really hard time to accept that, wow, I really like luxurious things, but I had a story that said that that was just, you know, not spiritual, that I needed, if I wanted to be spiritual, that I needed to really live in a very frugal way. Like the definition that I had on spirituality was, you know, as little as possible, no more than just enough, right? But I couldn't really serve people from a place of fullness and joy and peace and love when I couldn't be satisfied with my own lot. Mm-hmm. So I really, you know, teach people ways to come into truth and to recognize the truth. And, you know, and being, like you mentioned, Don Miguel Ruiz, you know, being impeccable with your word. When you're in truth, you're not hiding anymore. You're not waiting to be found out that you're a fake. When you're living in truth, you're less likely to fall victim to imposter syndrome. So I really help people to understand what it's like to be in truth. And even those little white lies, we carry them with us, because if so-and-so finds out that I said such and such and da, 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 it's like we have to carry that baggage around with us. But freeing ourselves of that just gives us more access to all of our energy. So there's a way that you can just tune into what is true and then acting in favor of that. Does that answer the question?
Yes. So it's very much an intuitive,
it's
an intuitive hit, you know. Truth for me shows up like, you know, just like expansion, excitement, moving toward.
Yes,
it makes me see, it's visceral. It makes me see possibility. It makes me, you know, my whole body is like, yes.
Yes.
Whole body, yes.
The ego will limit it, where intuitively you're in that place of not needing to know. And then when you get something, it feels like you made it up. Mm-hmm. It feels like it, and you did. You made it up. You made it up out of nothing. You created it out of nothing. Not that it had to fit this certain mold or appease a certain genre of people, or, you know, something to make you feel like it was the best guess you could come up with. It's just, there's no other feeling like the way that you just described it. It can be like that for many, and it can be something different for others. But it's definitely just a
an So we're like, we only have 60 minutes. So we only have like 5 more minutes, and I have 2 more questions.
Okay, let's go.
The first one is, what is your expertise on emotional intelligence, given what you've shared? And then the second is, how has this awareness of core beliefs and understanding your own mind and your own strategies, how has that brought you to a place of like embodied wholeness? Like, how does that contribute to you feeling just at home in your own skin, in alignment with your soul? Like that experience of like, you know,
like I'm living my destiny.
Yeah.
Well, the first question is pretty simple. I don't know a lot about emotional intelligence, because in my experience, when I'm void of the emotion, that's when I have access to my intuition. So from my experience, emotion can mar things because it activates thoughts and more feelings and stories. I do think that it's nice to recognize, because it's an indicator, right? And then if you're not resisting the emotion, you can just be with it and be like, okay, and start to have a dialogue. Okay, what do you want me to know? Right? And then I take action on what I get. So that's my limited expertise on that. Now the next question I could talk for another hour on, but so for me, the core beliefs were supported me so much in living my truth and living my purpose and really honing what my purpose is and just being on my track, on the right track, if you will. And it was because I was able to shine a light on what was operating underneath my awareness. And it takes humility, vulnerability, and intimacy, and an act of love to look at those things without identifying with them. Because the thing about the beliefs is they're not who you are, they're simply your orientation. And while you don't change a core belief or eliminate a core belief, you take the power out of it and reclaim it for yourself. So once you're aware of these core beliefs, it's like a new lease on life. It's like you reawaken to your truth, and you can see what the operating system's doing to take you in the path that you've been going. And then you're like so full of wisdom that you realize that you've created this whole life mostly dysfunctionally. And that's good news because now that you know where the dysfunction is being spawned from, and that you have control over that, and that you have the ability to shift your focus and start acting in favor of what you love, instead of trying to fix the core belief or change the core belief or take out the core belief. There's nothing to fix. Nothing is broken. We are already whole. Our perception of ourselves is what needs adjusting. And when we are aware of the core beliefs that have been keeping us in a limited formation, we can take our power back from that. And it's a moment to moment choice. So it's mastery in the moment. And it always gets better and better and better. The more practice we have, the more proficient we become.
Oh my gosh, that's very much what I consider to be alchemy. Is that like transformation in the moment, transformation over time, making everything in your life be for you, not against you. Like what you did with your husband and the surfboards, like, oh no, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I get to relish in the essence of his pleasure. That's fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This was so great.
Thank you.
We just got our countdown.
Oh, here we go.
I'm so grateful to you for sharing your wisdom. And so I guess one last question in our 1 minute and 40 seconds is how can people reach out to you and ask questions or learn about their core beliefs? Like, what is the best way for someone to start to like discover their own beliefs and strategies?
Yeah, well, you can hit me up on Instagram, DM me. You can email me at jessica@jessicarueger.com, and maybe we can put that in the comments or something. And I also have a website, jessicarueger.com. And I'm always happy to support people.
I bet that's in your bio. I bet that link is in your bio.
Oh, yes, it is.
The
link's in my bio.
Perfect. Oh gosh, wow. Thank you so much. Like, I feel like I could talk to you for ages about so much. I'm excited to create more questions so we can do this again.
Have me back anytime. I love it.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for listening. And we will see you again very soon.
Peace.
Bye, everyone.